Hey, everybody, we are back with an update on the Ellen Greenberg case, the so-called suicide of Ellen Greenberg. Now, for those who haven't been following the case lately or don't know too much about it, let me review some of the questions surrounding this case that have made so many people feel that it's been a clear miscarriage of justice. Now, Ellen Greenberg was a 27-year-old Philadelphia area school teacher found stabbed to death in her apartment, the apartment that she shared with her fiance 14 years ago, and she had 20 stab wounds altogether. 10 in the front, including one right through the heart. The knife was found sticking out prominently through her clothing, and another 10 in the back, including two in the upper part of the neck, which would have been hard for her to reach with a knife in that area. And an expert has said that at least one of those wounds, possibly two, were inflicted post-mortem. That means after she died. Now, those are just some of the questions begging for some real answers for a real investigation. And for the past 14 years, Ellen's parents, Josh and Sandy Greenberg, have been going to authorities begging them to get the medical examiner to take another look and to change his finding of suicide to either homicide or undetermined. And twice, the authorities, including the guy, the chief honcho at the time, the Josh Shapiro, who was now the governor of Pennsylvania, he was AG at the time, and twice he told them, no, the evidence shows clear-cut suicide, nothing to see here, folks, telling them essentially to take a walk. He did that twice to them, but they haven't given up. And somebody else who hasn't given up is Tom Brennan, a former Pennsylvania state trooper who took it upon himself 12 years ago to investigate the case on behalf of the Greenbergs. And he has plenty of questions also, and a lot of that will be discussing all these other glaring questions hanging, never been answered properly, professionally, thoroughly by any of the authorities. So here's what's been happening with the Ellen Greenberg so-called suicide case and why so many people, a growing number of people, feel it could not have been a suicide. Here we go. Hey, gang, with us once again is Tom Brennan with an update on what's been happening in the Ellen Greenberg so-called suicide case. A lot has been happening, and Tom Brennan is here to explain. He's been on the case as an investigator for many years now. And Tom, actually, you're being misidentified as a private investigator. What are you actually?
I'm a criminal investigative analyst.
Okay.
TV refers to us as profilers. Okay, that's the criminal minds part of it. All right. So uh, uh, when I do my investigations, I act under the license of another company. Okay.
Uh-huh.
So, but this case, I got involved in this case about 2 years after it occurred. Okay. And I got involved in it because two friends of mine, a judge in the Court of Common Pleas in Dauphin County, William Tully, and a dear friend of mine, a retired dentist, Victor Hajar, they knew that I took a look at cold cases, and they knew the parents. They knew Josh and Sandy. And they asked me if I would meet with Josh and Sandy in order to help them because they weren't getting anywhere in their quest, for justice for Ellen.
And this
So
actually
that's
happened.
when I met with Josh and Sandy.
This actually happened 14 years ago.
Yes.
Yeah, and
I got involved in it 12 years ago.
yeah. All right. So, Tom, to update the folks out there, there's been some real big movement in the case. There were two. There was a big settlement that settled two court cases that the Greenbergs and their lawyers were bringing. One was before the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, whether the parents of Ellen Greenberg had standing to challenge the medical examiner's report of suicide. The other case was a lawsuit against the city of Philadelphia and various officials that they were involved in a conspiracy to cover up a homicide. Those cases were settled for an undisclosed amount of money. The Greenberg spent $800,000 over the years pursuing this. So hopefully they got a good settlement and enough money to continue pursuing this. Now, with those cases settled, it really stemmed around Marlon Osborne, who was the original medical examiner who first declared it a homicide. Then, after being talked to by various officials in the DA's office, he changed it to suicide. So what did he do that kind of brought all this together now with the settlement and all that?
Okay. Originally, about 4 or 5 days after Ellen's death, there was a meeting held in the medical examiner's office with members of the DA's office, the police, Dr. Osborne, and Dr. Galino from the medical examiner's office. The police and the DA's office gave Dr. Galino and Dr. Osborne information about why this should be a suicide. Okay. Dr. Osborne now realizes, after the evidence we provided, knows that the information that he was given by the district attorney's office and the police was false. Okay? The information he got was false. So the decision to change it to suicide, okay, that's why he said this case is something other than suicide, okay? Because we were able to prove that the information he received from the police and the DA's office was false.
All right, so once again, he originally declared it a homicide, then quickly changed it to suicide after being talked to and persuaded by various officials that you mentioned, and now
Yes.
we
And
can't.
there's no record of that meeting.
No record of the meeting.
There's no written record of that meeting.
But we do know it occurred, and
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
But now he says no. He no longer says it was a suicide, but he doesn't say it was a homicide. He says what? Undetermined, something else.
No, he said it's something other. In his verification, he said it's something other than suicide.
Right.
Okay.
So,
Something other than suicide.
so that leaves it wide
Or
open.
it could be undetermined or homicide.
Right.
Okay.
All right. So where does it go from here? He is no longer the Philadelphia medical examiner. He's in Florida now.
Yes.
There's another medical examiner in Philadelphia. So does he take up the case now?
She. What the court said that they will take they are to take another look at it.
Another look.
We're waiting to see what opinion they come up with. And if you remember, okay, way back when, God bless her, Stephanie Farr from the Philadelphia Inquirer, okay, the Philadelphia Inquirer had the medical examiner from Montgomery County take a look at this case, okay? And the medical examiner from Montgomery County said, this is either undetermined or homicide, okay? It's not suicide. Way back when, okay? So I don't know who they're going to have take a look at it.
My question, Tom, is considering the history of this case where the authorities were seemingly intentionally looking the other way all these years, now it's back in the Philadelphia medical examiner's office. How much faith do you have in them actually doing a sincere, real, professional, thorough investigation?
I don't have any faith in them at all. None. I don't have any faith in them at all. Okay. Because number one, as a result of this case, I'm looking at some other cases too. Okay. And it's the same type of behavior. So, don't don't tell me about how good the medical examiner's office in Philadelphia is. It's not. What should be done is a very serious audit of the medical examiner's office in Philadelphia and their relationships with the district attorney and the homicide unit of the Philadelphia Police Department.
Tom, another part of this story, a big component, is when the parents of Ellen Greenberg, Josh and Sandy Greenberg, went to the then Attorney General by the name of Josh Shapiro, who is now the governor of Pennsylvania. Twice, he said, in effect, nothing to see here, folks. There's no evidence that would change anybody's opinion. It's a clear-cut suicide. So what happens now with Governor Shapiro?
I'm sorry, but when you mention his name, I get, I want to get vulgar and, nasty and down in the dirt. I despise the man. Okay, I have no use for him at all. I saw an interview that he did, on TV. He was approached at a different function, okay, and asked numerous questions regarding this case, and he lied through the entire interview. He lied. He lied about his contact with Josh and Sandy. He never ever contacted Josh and Sandy. They never ever contacted me. Okay. When I dropped off binders on the case with the Attorney General in King of Prussia in Philadelphia, down near Philly, I had 15 minutes with him on 2 occasions. Okay. I had 1.5 hour meeting with Michelle Henry, who was the Attorney General's chief of staff, and Jennifer Selber, who was the head of the Criminal Investigation Division in the AG's office. Jennifer Selber was the head of the Criminal Investigation Division for the Philadelphia DA's office when Guy DeAndrea asked her for permission to take a look at the case. So she knew everything.
You explain who Guy DeAndrea is.
Guy DeAndrea, I befriended Guy DeAndrea, and he was still in the DA's office. And Guy DeAndrea agreed to take a look at the case. And he asked permission from Jennifer Selber, his supervisor, if he could. Guy DeAndrea began looking at the case, okay? He found the case in a closet. There was no homicide number assigned to it or anything, okay? He spent 2 days in a conference room just organizing it. He had memos that he submitted to Jennifer Selber regarding the case on why the case was not a suicide, why it was a homicide. So Jennifer Selber, now in the AG's office, knew all about this, knew all about it, okay? And I have another email where a member of the Attorney General's office, okay, called the Philadelphia Law Department, okay, when she learned that the Pennsylvania State Police in Philadelphia had an interest in the case. She's told the Philadelphia Law Department to make sure they didn't give the state police copies of any reports. Okay? So, don't tell me about Shapiro's AG's office, all right?
We should also explain that the interview you mentioned a few minutes ago, where you say he lied, it was actually in response to your statement after Osborne changed his conclusion from suicide to something else. You said publicly that Shapiro should be kicked out of office. And that's when he responded to that in that interview that you referred to, where
Yes.
he distanced himself again, and he claims that nobody ever brought any new evidence to him that would have him conclude otherwise. And now,
That was BS. That
dis
was BS.
distancing
Okay.
himself further, he says, well, now it's in the hands of the Chester County DAs, and they've had it for what, a year and a half now, and they haven't moved on it.
Oh, they've had it longer than that.
Yeah.
Longer than that. Okay. And they've said that you know, they don't have anything new and they're closing it. But if they get something new, they'll open it. Now, come on, give me a break. Who did what gets me, Larry? Who did they talk to?
Yeah.
Did they interview the property manager? No. Did they interview Jimmy Schwartzman? No.
Jimmy
Did they interview any of the Philadelphia police officers? No.
All right,
Okay.
let's talk about Schwartzman and how he ties into this.
Okay. Jimmy Schwartzman is a very prominent attorney in Philadelphia. Okay. And he was the uncle of Sam Goldberg, who was the fiance of Ellen. Okay. The day after Ellen's death, he called the property manager, asked permission to gain entrance to the apartment to get a suit for Sam for Ellen's funeral. The property manager in turn called the police. She told them that Schwartzman wanted to come in to get a suit for, and was it for Sam, and was it okay? And they said yes. The property manager said, well, the place is all bloody and everything else. They said, well, it's not our job to clean it up. Either you're going to have to clean it up or the renter. So they gave her the telephone number for crime scene cleanups in Philadelphia. She called them. Crime scene cleanups sent 2 women over, and they cleaned and sanitized the scene. The property manager said the last thing she remembers was them taking the knives out of the sink and putting them in the dishwasher. Okay? So the next day, that was the 27th. So then she calls Schwartzman. Schwartzman comes over. He gets the suit and a pair of shoes. But before leaving, he takes Ellen's credit cards, her cell phone, her work laptop, her private laptop, and Sam's private laptop. He leaves an engagement ring on the counter in the bathroom that's worth tens of thousands of dollars.
So it wasn't just a matter of taking
So
I
then Schwartzman comes back and says, the reason why I took them was for to keep their financial value. Bullshit. You take the electronics and you leave an engagement ring that's worth tens of thousands of dollars. Give me a break. Okay. The police don't get the electronics until the 29th. He removes them on the 27th. They don't get them until the 29th.
Yeah, and also there was something peculiar about what might have been scrubbed. The FBI came to one conclusion, and then the police came to another. Right? It didn't match what might.
No. What happened was the police sent Ellen's laptop to the lab to have it analyzed. Okay, they did a forensic analysis on her laptop and came back, and in the report it states nothing related to suicide was found. Okay. The Attorney General's office, okay, says that during their thorough investigation, They had the FBI do another forensic analysis on Ellen's laptop, and they come up with these shadow searches, okay, for uh, you know, uh, quiet death and some other stuff, okay? Well, I asked for a copy of that report. I asked Michelle Henry and Jennifer Selber when I met with them, never got it. I had an attorney call Michelle Henry and ask for a copy of the report. Michelle Henry said she would have the senior deputy attorney general who was in charge of the case provide me with a copy. To date, I still don't have a copy of that report.
And once again, Michelle Henry is who?
She was the chief of staff in the attorney general's office. And when Shapiro became governor, he appointed her AG. So she was an AG that finished out his term. Okay. So I still don't have a copy of that report. That is bullshit. The FBI never did a second analysis.
No.
Okay. You know where that analysis was done? The analysis was done by Larry Krasner,
Huh.
who was the attorney for Josh and Sandy. Okay. He said he had the laptop sent to people in North Carolina. They did a forensic analysis on it, and the report is about that thick. Okay. There's only two people have copies of it. Myself, because when I got involved in this investigation, I had Josh and Sandy telephone Krasner and tell him to send me a copy of the report. So there's two copies of that report that exist. One in Josh and Sandy's file with Krasner, and the copy that I have. Okay. When the Attorney General's office publishes that report, okay, gives those copies to the Philadelphia Inquirer about these shadow searches, where did they come from? They came from the report that was done in North Carolina. And the Attorney General's office had copies of Josh and Sandy's personal file. Okay. I had Josh and Sandy contact Krasner and request their file. Krasner said he gave it to them. They never got it. Okay. So I think when Krasner sent his file on the case to the AG's office, he also sent Sandy and Josh's personal file.
A little bit about Krasner. He was originally the lawyer for Sandy and Josh Greenberg. Then, when he was appointed the DA of Philadelphia, he had to recuse himself from the case, right?
Yes. I have copies of emails where he tells Josh that he's speaking with Sierra, the detective who's assigned the case from the Philadelphia Police Department, and he's talking to the solicitor for the city of Philadelphia, and he's going to get copies of the police reports. So I have copies of all those emails. Okay.
Now, something else we should probably mention is the only person who was allegedly around to discover the body of Ellen Greenberg, and that was Sam, who was the fiance. And he made a 911 call, and that has opened up a lot of questions. And also the sequence, did he call 911 first, or did he call his Uncle Schwartzman first? And what was the content of the 911 call that didn't seem to make sense entirely? You want to tell us about that?
He called his cousin, Sam Goldberg called his cousin Camion, okay, who is Jimmy Schwartzman's son, okay? He's also an attorney. Camion put his father on the phone, Jim Schwartzman. And according to their attorney, Mr. Johnson says that they were advising Sam on what to do. What kind of advice were they giving Sam? This was prior to the 911 call.
And that's established. It was prior to the 911 call.
Yes, yes. Okay. So what kind of advice were they giving him?
It was also prior to him allegedly breaking through the door.
Yes. Yes.
So at that point, if the story is correct, Sam, the fiance, didn't know what was going on inside the apartment, but he was on the phone with his uncle, the lawyer. And before he broke through the door, supposedly, and found her, and then he made the 911 call.
Yeah. And they said that they heard Sam when he hit the door. So, that's what their attorney says, okay?
So Sam goes through the door, supposedly breaks the hinge lock off, although it was really not entirely off the wall.
No.
Tell us from there.
Okay. When I look at something like that, okay, that's all part of the staging. Okay. That lock, when you look at it, it's mounted on the door with 4 screws. Okay.
What's it called? A swing lock? A swing lock?
Sliding bar lock.
Okay.
Sliding bar lock. It's mounted with 4 screws on the door and then 2 on the door jamb. Okay. Well, it's the door is damaged. Okay. 3 screws are still in it. The 4th screw is out. Now, it's a wood particle door. Where should the wood particles be? On the floor, right? Beneath where the damage is. Where should the screw be? Someplace on the floor, right? Well, if you take a look at the photographs, none of that is in the photographs. So that's evidence of cleaning up. Someone was cleaning up. So that door was damaged just to make it look like he hit the door.
Now, could the door have been breached without that hinge being entirely off?
No. The state police sent me to lockpicking school. I used to do the surreptitious entries for the Pennsylvania State Police. Okay? So I do know a lot about locks.
All right, so he gets into the apartment, and then what?
Then he says he sees all this blood all over the place. And that's when he calls 911. And when he calls 911, he begins by telling them he left, then he went down to the gym, and then he came back up and he tried to get in, he couldn't make entry. So he forced his way in, and lo and behold, there's Ellen. Okay. But he gives all this preamble before he gets to the fact that, yep, there's Ellen.
And then he says she either stabbed herself or fell on a knife, on her knife.
Yeah.
Now, he doesn't discover the knife immediately, even though it is sticking out through her outer clothing. It was quite obvious. I've seen the autopsy photos.
Yeah.
I mean, you would think that there's no way that could be missed when you enter right away, because he doesn't mention that knife until somewhat into the conversation with 911, right?
Right. He doesn't mention it until 911 tells him to perform CPR.
And
And he said, well, she has a zippered shirt on. And he goes, oh my God, there's a knife stuck in her chest. So, you know,
like that's that's the first time he noticed that knife
yeah,
prominently
yeah,
sticking out of her chest through her clothing, and when he's right
yeah,
on top of her.
yeah.
Hmm. All right, so then what happens?
So then he calls 911 and 911 tells him to perform CPR. He says, do I have to? This is the woman that's the love of your life.
And
This is the woman that you're going to marry.
he says, "I
You
guess I
say, do
have."
I have to?
Yeah,
Okay. So, but anyway, then they send over the EMTs. The EMTs arrive, okay? The EMTs arrive and they say the first EMT through the door, he's the one at 6:40 pronounces Ellen. 6:40 p.m. pronounces Ellen dead, okay? The lieutenant, okay, that's with him, okay, is walking, is it comes down the elevator and is walking out of the lobby and says to Phil Hanton, who is the security man in the lobby
right.
or the loft, remarks to him, you don't need us. You got a homicide upstairs. Okay. So when you interview the first guy through the door, okay, he says, once he pronounces Ellen, Sam is in, has sweatpants on. When did Sam put sweatpants on? Okay. Because we see him on video coming out of the gym and he has shorts on. When did he put the sweatpants on? I don't know. Okay. But you have a witness that said he had sweatpants on. Okay. Okay. So did he have sweatpants on? I don't know. Okay. So he says the the EMS individual who did the pronouncing says to his lieutenant, we better, now that the uniformed police officers are here, we better go back to the station because Philly Homicide is going to want to interview us. Philly Homicide never interviewed them. They were the first individuals at the scene, and Philly Homicide never interviewed them. Okay? Never talked to them.
We should mention at this point, Tom, that Sam Goldberg was never named a suspect. In fact, no suspects were ever named.
No, no, no. No suspects are ever named. We have never named any suspects. Never.
Right.
All we talked about certain individuals' behaviors, but we never ever talked about a suspect.
Now, he was interviewed apparently by police with a lawyer present, and we don't have access to the interview with.
His statement, no, no, no.
And he had a high-powered lawyer with him, didn't he?
Supposedly, I don't know for sure because I haven't seen the reports, but supposedly there was one of the best defense attorneys in Philadelphia.
But there was an interview, the same night with police.
Yes, supposedly the police took him to headquarters to get a statement.
And we don't know Where that statement is, if they took it down at all, we have no information on that.
I don't know. I haven't seen that in the police reports. So we got the police reports from the police, and I'm going through them. It's about 5,000 pages.
All right, Tom, getting back to where we started. So Marlon Osborne, the original medical examiner who first declared it a homicide, then changed it to suicide, has since recanted and now says, in a sense, undetermined. So now it goes back to the current Philadelphia medical examiner's office, who supposedly is going to look into the case. Now, if that falls short of a thorough, competent in sincere professional investigation, where do you go from there?
Well, if they renege on their part of the agreement, then you have no agreement.
Well, all they agreed on
Okay.
was to look into it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And if they come back with anything other than what Osborne said, okay, then to me, they're disagreeing with the agreement.
Okay, what if they come back with undetermined? Where does it go from there?
If they come back with undetermined, then it goes to well, there's a number of different places it can go. It can go back to the AG's office. You don't want the Chester County DA's office taking a look at it. They have it now. They've done nothing. Okay. You don't want to go into Philly. Okay. They had it originally. You don't want to go in. Well, I guess there's a different attorney general now, so it might go back to the attorney general that has it now. That's there now. The investigation could be conducted by the state police, criminal investigative assessment unit that does cold cases.
Well,
Okay.
well, who determines if it goes anywhere and where it goes? Who determines that? With all these options of where it might go, who makes the call on where it does go?
Well, the way I would look at it is, you have an attorney general who is supposedly the head prosecutor in the state of Pennsylvania. And, or the U.S. attorney in Philadelphia, if he sees that, hey, there could be issues here there could be criminality committed by the Philadelphia Police Department, the DA's office, or the medical examiner's office. So I'm going to have the FBI look at it. Okay. It could be that, or it could go to the AG's office and him have somebody else look at it.
If you and the Greenbergs and the Greenberg lawyers are not satisfied where it ends up and how vigorously it is or isn't being investigated, reinvestigated, is there anything that you guys could do to get it to the right place and have an effective investigation?
The only thing we can do is what we've been doing, and that's been working with the media to put enough pressure on people, with you guys doing your podcast, with the media doing this stuff in reporting, okay, about it. And you guys, because this case would never have gone anywhere if it wasn't for people like you. Okay? It would never have gone anywhere. When I first told Josh and Sandy, I have gone as far as I can without the help. I said, we need to get the media involved and get the word out, because the media's, better than a bullet. So that's when they agreed. And I contacted 10 different journalists who did stories on this initially. One journalist called me back, and that was Stephanie Farr.
Of the Philadelphia Inquirer.
Yeah. And once she put her story out, okay, she did her own investigation for a year. And she even found some things that I hadn't got to yet. Okay. And as a result, When she did hers, that's when it just blew up.
In fact, even nationally and internationally, it's gotten some coverage. Nancy Grace has had it on Fox Nation. The Daily Mail has been covering it. So yeah, it's gotten widespread publicity. But as I found out, as I mentioned to you, I live in northeastern Pennsylvania, close to Scranton, close to Joe Biden's hometown, by the way. And the local newspaper, which often carries AP stories and Philadelphia Inquirer stories, never mentioned it. And to this day, as far as I know, still hasn't mentioned the case. So you could see how some of the media is still not on board with this and not likely to become on board. But Tom, last question now. When Osborne recanted, that's my word, recanted, and said it was something other than suicide, you and Joe Pedraza, one of the Greenberg's lawyers, both said that you will find the killer or killers. Is that still your position?
Yes.
You're,
What is finished for now, okay, is the civil part of this case. Now we go into the criminal part. Okay. Now should start the criminal investigation.
now, let me say this, my hat's off to you for persevering through all this. And by the way, for those who don't know, all this work you've been putting into it, all the investigation, all the hours has been pro bono. You haven't gotten any money for it, and you're not even looking for it. So you stuck with it all these years because that's who you are. You see something that isn't right, and you try to make it right, and you're still hanging in there. So my parting words to you is, again, kudos to you, and I hope that it will turn out the way you say it will, that you will find the killer or killers. Tom Brennan, we'll be talking again. Thanks for spending this time with us, and we'll be updating this as we go along. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you very much, Larry. You take care.